What up? You're listening to SOSY Talk. I'm Joey Roman. I got Billy Miller on the podcast today. It's going to be a really good conversation. Before we get into it, I'm going to let you know that today's word of the day is manifest. All right, what up, Billy? How we doing, man?
Good. How you doing, man?
Hey, all is good. So I went ahead and let the audience know what the word of the day is already. To get this conversation going, I'm going to let you know that our word of the day is manifest. So I like to start it off by getting your thoughts on that word, maybe tying it into a few things that you've been learning. But when you hear the word manifest, what comes to mind?
Manifest. So, to me, it's like what pops right in my head. It's like law of attraction, and you become what you think about most, And when we were working together, like through Vivint, like that's a big thing. Is like you put out what you want in life, and so whether it's your goals or like what you want to accomplish, like it's very important that you're manifesting those things. And you think about them enough and take direct, deliberate action towards those things, I believe you can accomplish anything you put your mind to.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I think what's cool is there's a lot of things that we would do in our work that would remind ourselves mentally, you got to continue to focus on what you want, right?
Right.
So I was reading something this morning, actually, believe it or not. So I'll read it to you and we can talk about it a little bit more. This says, watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. So when you hear that, how does that tie into like what you were just talking about?
I think that's huge. It's like I read a book about optimism, and that's like the biggest thing with optimism is the self-talk and how you talk to yourself and about yourself, kind of in your own head, and how you really have to deliberately take like intent on how am I speaking to myself? Am I focusing on a positive outcome, positive reinforcements and affirmations throughout the day? And those do become your habits, and I believe your habits ultimately become your identity.
Yeah.
And that's who you become based off of those. So I think it's huge.
I think it's crazy. I think you and I started to like really click as far as feeling like we had similar work habits, which is awesome. What are some of the habits that you've been kind of working on right now?
I just been focusing on routine. Like to me, routine is huge. I actually just started reading this new book called The 5 a.m. Club.
Interesting. I haven't heard of it. No.
It's pretty cool. I haven't fully dove into this yet, but it's a principle of waking up at 5 in the morning. Normally I have like a 7 a.m. wake up routine. This is like a little bit more intense. But I've read this book and just how important that first hour of the day is, and how the first 60 minutes you wake up, what you're doing ultimately impacts the rest of your day. And each day, like steady, constant, small improvements can have like huge outcomes, over a year, or a couple of years.
That's crazy. So I feel like, getting up at 5 a.m., that's something that gradually over time just becomes natural. But obviously, any new habit that you've got in your life isn't necessarily going to be easy, and it's going to have its ups and downs. But at the very beginning, I feel like you struggle a lot.
Yeah.
Can you think of so I wanted to bring this up because honestly, it's something that I think would be good for the audience to hear a little bit about. But whether it's waking up early or whether it's a different one of your habits, like maybe journaling is a big thing for you, as we've talked about in the past. Talk to me about like your struggles. How do you deal with getting through a habit that you know you really want to manifest, but you're also struggling with it at the same time?
A lot of it comes down to self-discipline. You kind of have to know, like, you got to understand what is it that I need to do to get what I want, and then the first few times it's going to be hard. Like you said, journaling. Like for me, I always knew journaling and like writing my goals was a positive thing, but it was so hard to maintain that habit because it seems so such a minute thing that it wouldn't really have a big effect on anything. So it's easy to like let a day slip by or a couple of days slip by. So for that specifically, it was like I just kind of bought into it. Like, you know what, I'm going to just do it for a whole summer and I'm going to figure it out. And whether I'm writing like 2 sentences, just do something. And then each day you start getting more and more comfortable doing that. And then you realize you can write paragraphs on how, well, on what's going through your mind. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of it just comes down to like, what you need to do and just doing it the first few times, even though it's hard, and just understanding that tomorrow it'll be easier and the next day it'll be easier.
I'm curious, do you kind of write those kinds of positive affirmations when you do journal? That like when you're struggling, you'll write it down, and then even those times where you're like, all right, I'm gonna become someone who's really good at waking up at 5 a.m, do you kind of write that to yourself, almost like tying that into your writing as part of your manifestation?
Yeah, right. Because I read a book, Atomic Habits, last year, and I feel like that was one of the biggest impacts on my routine. But I really focused on that. Like, I would write, in our industry, 300 accounts. Like, selling 300 accounts is a big milestone. And so every single day I wrote, I'm a 300 account rep before I actually even did it. And so I kind of manifested that, like we were talking about, into the universe, that, okay, this is who I am. And then gradually that's what I became, but I had to believe I was there before I was.
I love that. That's what it's about right there, is really having that confidence in yourself. So when you're starting to get like you're getting that clicking feeling of like, man, I know that I can manifest things into this world. What do you kind of like do to push yourself to stay uncomfortable and continue to like do things that you've never done before?
I think I have this like kind of addiction almost to like progression. Like, I have this kind of natural like urge to get better at things and to be further along than I was the day before. So I think I was kind of blessed that that's kind of a trait that I just already have. But to me, that's very important. Like, it doesn't matter how like much money I have or what I actually have. It's what have I accomplished, and I'll never feel comfortable if I'm in the same place I was, the day before, the year before. So to me, just progression is just something that's really important to me every single day.
I think there's this sort of fulfillment that you're chasing and like continuing to get better. Do you feel like there's ever like a time where you're fully fulfilled by when you actually do get to that point where you've manifested something that you've been kind of telling yourself?
It's funny. It's like it's for a split second. You kind of get
right. That's what I was thinking too.
Satisfaction.
Yeah.
It's like a split second. Like, okay, I got that. Like, now what's next?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of feeling. And I think just as humans, like that's how we are. We always want more, and we always want to progress. And so I don't think there'll ever be a time where you're like, okay, I've done everything, I'm finished. You'll always kind of have that progression mindset. And I do feel like that's where I find fulfillment. It's like, okay, I'm getting better. You know? So
one thing I've been thinking about a lot is like when you're chasing that fulfillment is sometimes you do end up realizing after you've done this enough that it's a split second. It's not something that's necessarily gonna give you that high that like you're chasing. It's more about the process.
Exactly.
So in that process, do you feel like there's things that you use as maybe like feeling part of like a team or feeling part of something bigger than yourself to continue to motivate yourself to enjoy the process?
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing, is like figuring out, okay, you figured something out and you accomplished this. Now how do I teach another person, or how do I transfer this over to another person?
Exactly.
And give them that same feeling. And I think you almost find more gratification and fulfillment in that a lot of times than in your own.
I wanted to kind of wrap it up. I feel like this is kind of an idea of where I thought we'd be as far as like at this point is I feel like from our conversation is the more you continue to better yourself as a person, and the more you have an idea of what your goals are, and the more you speak those into existence, you're becoming a better Billy.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell me a little bit about, what is it about Billy that makes you different, that makes you so obsessed with becoming a better version of yourself?
I think it's a good question. I think I've always just kind of had this high expectation for what I can accomplish. Like, I've never really been okay being average or mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
I think in anything I do, I've always wanted to excel at it and kind of chase excellence in anything. So I think that's one thing that makes me different. And I think a lot of people just need to change that mindset and understand that, like, you can be great. You don't we're all great in our own ways, and you can find greatness in yourself. And I think every person needs to understand that, and then go chase that.
Yeah, I like to throw in a little something about the brand in each podcast. And so, what you just said right there, with everybody having that greatness in them, to me, I've just kind of defined it as everybody has their signature something. And so, um, when you realize that, you start to become like a better version of that signature. You kind of refine it each day. And then, honestly, I feel like what's really cool about that is you start to realize that you're leaving something behind, like a legacy or like an impact on somebody. So if you could say that, like, as we finish up right here, if you could say that there's something that you're focusing on leaving behind right now, as far as kind of who you are and the impact that you have on others or your legacy or whatever, what would you want that to be?
I think it really is just like finding that within yourself. Like I would like people to understand, because like my story in the specific industry that I'm working in, like I didn't start good at it,
Yeah.
And so I think that's a huge example that I can leave for people, is like, just because you don't start the best doesn't mean you can't finish as the best.
Right.
And if you fully buy into it, you can make it happen. So I think that's the biggest thing that I can leave, is like I'm not naturally talented or gifted in the field that I work in, but if you put the work in and you study